So we have Tiffany on the line. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Oh, video. Oh, excuse me, she's on Skype. So that makes it even greater to tune in to KCAA because you get to see myself and Tiffany. And Tiffany worked for the San Joaquin Vector Department, and we've been doing a series with her because to me, the Vector Department is the source of so many exposures to pesticides and the thing is, this is something we don't control. They're making the decisions. And the way they're making the decisions and the oversight for these departments is pretty much limited to a board of trustees that is not sitting there questioning what is being done. Instead, they are there to help assist in doing things against the protocol set up by the government for reporting accidents, for follow-up, by notifying OSHA. How many people out there are being exposed like this? When I saw a landscaper out working in a yard, I asked him, I said, "Are you going to be spraying Roundup?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, where do you work?" And so I called up the landscaping company and I asked him, I said, you know this is on the Prop 65 list as cancer causing. Why are you exposing your employees? And, please don't. But here a couple of days later, he was out there spraying Roundup. So the employers are not caring about their employees and what they are being exposed to. And this is the same at the Vector Department, but this isn't the only case where we're talking about like golf course superintendents that are in charge of entire golf courses, and they are spraying pesticides like you wouldn't believe on golf courses, some of the worst of the worst. And their organization is in bed with the pesticide companies. Well, when we look at vector departments, we see the very same thing is true. Those are big time sponsors of big events that they have. And I want to introduce Tiffany and get her on because I want to get back. We've actually touched on that a little bit, some of the events that these people from the vector department go to. Tiffany, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Tiffany. Tiffany Anderson, everyone, and she's a whistleblower from San Joaquin Vector Department. And I was just going into the sponsors because I did since we talked the last time, Tiffany. Do you have the video on the screen? I'm sorry. I was just talking to the engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, since we talked the last time, I did some research into the organization for the superintendents of golf. There's like a whole professional organization that the maintenance people that use all the pesticides on golf courses, and it's just obvious that it's I don't see anything.
What do you know about?
Oh no. I'm sorry. You thought we were going to play the video. Okay, we're going to go ahead and play the video from the. This is Zika is something. Let me just do a little intro here. Zika is something that the government is trying to scare us with, and we're going to talk. Tiffany and I are going to talk a little bit. She's going to talk her side. I'm going to talk my side on the Zika thing. Those of us in California are now getting commercials from the pesticide department or public health department because they're trying to create this
fear.
problem, this fear, with this commercial. Go ahead and play that, Blake.
What do you know about Zika? The Zika virus is spread through the bite of an infected mosquito or sex with an infected partner. It poses a serious risk to you, your family, California, and especially to a pregnant woman's developing baby. While there is no treatment or vaccine, you can stay protected. Visit ZikaFreeCA.com to learn how. And don't bring Zika home. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
Okay.
What do you...
when I analyze that commercial, I'm watching it, Tiffany. One of did you hear at the very end they said that you can still protect yourself?
I couldn't hear the commercial at all.
Oh,
So,
you couldn't hear it. Okay, at one point it says you can still. There said there is no vaccine because we delegated 20 billion federal dollars to a Zika vaccine. And
you know, what a coincidence, because when there was West Nile, there was no vaccine as well. So it's funny how they create the problem, they also have the solution. And
you just brought up a really important thing, Tiffany, and I did not think about that. The fact that how come we have not asked for any vaccine on West Nile virus?
Elaine, let me point something out to you. As a pesticide applicator, I was sent out into. You brought up golf courses, but one of the big things we have out here, we're agriculture, and so we have duck clubs, and a lot of the employees actually would go to these duck clubs in their free time, and so it's kind of like a good old boys club out here, and so it's so self-serving what they do. Everything they do is self-serving. I was assigned the duck clubs out west of I-5, and when they had meetings, I wasn't even allowed to go to them. So it was my territory, and the manager would go meet with the guys, and they would do whatever it was they were doing, and the person who was there to monitor that area wasn't even invited to the meetings. So clearly they weren't talking about mosquitoes or my job, or else I would have been present.
The fact that they excluded you at all when that was your territory, that right there is, I mean, and it how did it affect you as an employee, Tiffany? I mean, how did that make you feel when you were being excluded like that, just personally?
It was angering to the point. I mean, that was just the beginning. I mean, that was before I was even a whistleblower. That was when they liked me. When they didn't like me, it got ugly. It got very ugly. And so when we talk about dealing, where I was going with this was, there was a point. So I'd be out in the islands, and that would create, the islands, they would actually create lots of mosquitoes intentionally. And so I asked, if I got West Nile, would I have work for, if I had West Nile from doing this job, would I have medical care? And I was told no. So,
because they're, about all they can do is, and the thing is, if you have a flu shot, and you can have a false positive because it's the same kind of aflo virus. It's the same test for the flu versus West Nile virus or the dengue or Zika. And so that's why, that they get these, you can't even really be sure someone had it, because if they had a flu shot, because it could be a false positive. And the fact that we're now more than ever, like, you got me thinking, the fact that, because the West Nile virus is like supposed to be way bigger than Zika, right? And why has there never been any request for a vaccine for that? Because the fact that we have delegated $20 billion of taxpayer money to a Zika vaccine, and the fact that vaccine, that virus, Zika virus, is owned by the Rockefellers. I mentioned this last week.
Wow.
But
I was the one who brought up the Rockefellers, but wow, that's.
But they have a patent on, like, Zika virus. So the fact that we went for the vaccine for Zika virus but not West Nile virus really makes me, because I want to know, does anyone have a patent on, like, West Nile virus? Probably not. But the fact that the Rockefellers have a patent on Zika virus, and we delegate $20 billion for a vaccine.
So we should be suing the Rockefellers for spreading a virus?
Well,
so you have this entity who's creating a problem, then they have the solution, and we are just the victims that are caught in the crossfires.
Spot on, Tiffany. You really hit the nail on the head. But I want to go back to what you were just saying, because you got my curiosity up when you were talking about the islands. What do you
Right.
mean? Like, islands would be a perfect place to breed mosquitoes. I'm sure they're, mosquito islands and mosquitoes. I'm sure synonymous with as like having a problem because you have so much water.
Well, they told me in my training that there are 26 species of mosquitoes in California. And so there were a variety of mosquitoes that would come out of the islands. And
What
and
what
so
islands?
okay, so I had Roberts Island, I had Upper and Lower Jones, I had Victoria Island, I had Union Island, um, I had Bacon Island, Mandeville Island, which is owned by one man, and Woodward Island, which is owned by the manager of mosquito and vector control. It's owned by his family. He owns that property out there, Woodward Island.
Really?
Did
That's
I cover
interesting.
them all? Yeah, he has so many. Our manager, again, okay. First of all, mosquitoes have to have water to to um, to be to exist. Mosquitoes have to have water to exist. So our manager, not only is he managing mosquito abatement, he's also on the board of the irrigation. He's on the irrigation district board. Plus, while he was on the irrigation board, he was in litigations with them over water rights. So he has his hands everywhere. There are so many conflicts. His job is
So he
supposed.
wants water rights, and yet he went and got himself on the board where he could influence policy on water rights
He's influencing policy every which way. I mean, his son, again,
to his benefit. To his
I,
benefit.
his son is a
Sounds familiar.
his son is a distributor for Wilbur Ellis, a representative for Wilbur Ellis, which is one of the main chemicals that the vector uses. So everywhere you go, he's got his hands everywhere. But they are supposed to. The number one thing that they are supposed to do is water reduction. They are supposed to reduce the irrigations out. So I had two different areas. Actually, I had three, but the two main areas I had were the islands, and the islands basically are man-made pieces of land. If we did not have generators pumping the water off at a rapid rate, they would be flooded. They're floodplains, and so what happens is when the moon is full, it raises the water table, and when the moon is like gone, or it's at a quarter thumbnail, the water level decreases, and so it'll be dry land, and so the water moves and flows with the movement of the moon. And so there'll be times where it'll be completely dry out there because the generators are working, and it's flatter area. Then you've got, like, around the ridges of the island. See, an island you can drive all the way around, and these areas would be hard to get to, and so they'd create the one main mosquito.
And so you guys are going out to the island to spray pesticides.
I was sent out as a female to these islands by myself, which was a pretty dangerous job.
Yeah,
There's no
I would be scared to be out there in those desolate places by myself.
I wasn't when I had Supervisor A, the one who died, the real supervisor, the one who did his job. But what happened was, Supervisor B, the one that should
Owns
have
the
been
island.
permanent, the one he was sleeping with a girl that he was assigned to be monitoring, and so they had to move everyone around to accommodate this relationship. And so when he was put out there to monitor me, she didn't want him working with me, and so he didn't do his job. He didn't have to do his job, and neither did she. And so when we start talking about West Nile and we start talking about Zika, I just go, you know what, it's BS, because I witnessed people who did not have to do their job. You know, I mean, they didn't have to do their job, period. I had a supervisor who did not have to monitor me, did not have to go out and do his job.
Well, it sounds like keeping this water keeping the water from certain areas was important to prevent mosquito breeding.
Keeping, if you want to get rid of a mosquito, get rid of the water. So I know we were going to talk about Zika, but this, you know, these
all of the different ones. To me, it's the same across the board. They're just trying to scare everyone. And then, you know, it really frightens me in that commercial too, is they're talking about having children, getting pregnant. It's almost like they're using Zika as a population control method.
Well, what they're doing is using the pesticides as a population control.
Well, I mean, that as well, yeah. Together with that, because Dr. Hayes says in 3 generations we're going to have mass infertility because of atrazine.
Okay, okay. So when I first was hired at Mosquito Abatement in 2001, there was a lawsuit that was a lawsuit. Let me slow down a little bit. A lawsuit that won, where the mosquito control, it was a lawsuit against the mosquito and vector control in New York because they were using 2 products, Anvil, they were using the Vectovac, and they were also using, which is a BTI, it's a, let me see if I can get this right. I'm going to have to look here. It's a bacteria, and
the BT?
The BT, it's called BTI, and it's called Bacillus
thuringiensis.
Yes. So in Israel, so supposedly it's some kind of bacteria that was some kind of spores that they bring from Israel, and but the one side effect that is known is it's a corrosive. It corrodes. The one girl who had a special spraying unit on her vehicle. We all drove around with 50-gallon tanks. So we could have 50 gallons of oil in our truck. We could have 50 gallons of herbicide in our truck. Any kind of pesticide you could think of, or herbicide, larvicide, we could drive around with that in our vehicle. Then we would have 50-pound bags of granules that we could also carry around. But one girl had a special unit that she was using, and it kept corroding. It kept having so many issues with it because she was using this BTI. But where I was going with that was they actually won their lawsuit in New York against mosquito and vector. Maybe before our next conversation, we can both look at that. I was just starting to look at it when I was on hold. But I was looking, to kind of refer back to it.
It sounds like a really important case because the person won against the vector department.
They did win, and
what was their basis of their lawsuit?
I'm going to have to go back and look, but okay.
Did it have to do with fertility?
Hold on. The employees were told that it was safe to use, and I don't think that they were using protective equipment. And so what happened was the vector control came back and they said you have to use gloves and you have to use a respirator. What did we have to use with it? We had to wear eyewear, a respirator, and they're spores, the bacteria spore.
So you probably have to cover your body, your skin as well.
Well, we didn't put anything on our face. I'll tell you what, that stuff would burn. Like I'd have to spray ditches. I'd have to spray dairy. So the dairy lagoons, there's so many sources, Elaine, that I wanted to kind of get into. So I started out on the islands, then I was put out into the agriculture area, and so I would have to spray ditches, and it would just be miles and miles of drainage ditches where the dairymen would release their dairy ponds into the to the roads, and So then we'd have to just spray that. The BTI it has such a quick kill rate. It kills, so BTI kills first instar. Do you know about the instars in the pupa?
Well, I know with butterflies, but yeah, that's like so it has like the different stages, and that
Of metamorphosis. So we have first through third stage, and that's when they're still eating. So and even toward the fourth, but by the fourth instar, they start to metamorphose into a pupa, and once they start to pupate, they stop eating. So the only way to kill them is while they're eating, and unless we use an oil when they pupate, and then we suffocate them. Which is actually, when I did it, I thought it was pretty cool to watch them, because you see them trying to get air, and they die. They actually die of suffocation, and it's kind of cool to watch.
is that the same active ingredient that's in those dunks that people can buy at like Lowe's and Home Depot?
I just looked it up, and it's BTI. That's what they're selling at Home Depot and stuff.
Yeah, the dunks, and they have the crumbles, or they have the discs that you can just put right in a pond, and it is really effective. They found dead mosquitoes on the riverbank in Israel, and they looked inside their gut and found that bacteria, and it doesn't hurt anything else. It only hurts.
That's not true.
Oh, really? That's because that's. Please
That's
tell,
not true.
tell me how it does work.
Well, I'm gonna. What I was starting to tell you how it
Corrosive. That's something I never heard of before.
Yeah. Multiple employees have eye corrosion. So as the one girl
had eye cancer. One girl had eye cancer, you said.
Well, that it's the corrosion in the eye from the. I mean, we can guesstimate at what at what things are. I'm not a scientist, but when you sit back and you see their equipment that is corroding and has to be replaced constantly when it's a brand new piece of spray equipment, then
you're thinking about your own body, and like what is it, if it's doing that to this piece of equipment, what is it doing to my body?
Exactly. I wanted to also to point out that this is kind of we would have rinse water. So let's say there's all these different herbicides and pesticides that I can use. I can use oil, I can use the herbicides, and then I can use the larvicides, and I can use the adulticides. And but when you change from one to the other, like an oil to a water, they don't mix. And so you have to empty, the BTI, they say after 3 days, it doesn't work. It kind of just, it doesn't, the active ingredient is no longer active. So we would have a rinse tank where we would dump our water. And so we also had a 200-gallon tank that we would drive around with, and we'd spray with that during the fall and springtime. And so we would get this rinse water, and so you have 19 employees, and they need to dump their chemical. Sometimes you just spray it out on somebody's property. I mean, even if you didn't need to spray the property, but you needed to get rid of the chemical because you needed to use a different chemical, you would just spray it out at someone's property. But if you left it in over the weekend or whatever and you needed to change, we would dump it into rinse water. Then they would take all this rinse water, they'd put it in this 200-gallon tank, and they'd take it out to somebody's property, and they would just dump it. And they'd call it rinse water.
Wow. And the fact that you have to, that's because we've talked out a lot about factory farms and the way their operations are with these huge excrement ponds. Where all of the pee and the poop from the factory farm go into these storage facilities, and you're saying that at some point some of these operations just kind of let that water go, which could be full of antibiotic resistant bacteria because they're feeding animals antibiotics all the time.
Absolutely. Oh, So I went from the islands. After I filed my sexual harassment complaint against this male employee supervisor who was not who actually got to keep his job. I was transferred under a different supervisor, and I was put out onto dairy property. And so I'd never been on dairies before, and so this is what I saw at a dairy. The dairymen, their cows will be in the stalls, and yes, they pee and they poop at a pretty constant rate, and the milking cows. And so yes, they they need to be. Sometimes they artificially inseminate them, and then they use. I learned that they used the formaldehyde on their hooves because they get like hoof rot, and so all this excrement waste gets washed into these, they call them lagoons. And so when we were assigned to these properties, we were required to go to these lagoons and handle shit water. That's exactly what it was. It was, we're calling it excrement. Okay, excrement water. And they breed mosquitoes like crazy. Mosquitoes, they love dirty water. The ones that they say carry the virus loves the dirty water, and the West Nile virus specifically, that was the one that they said that they kill it. So I have a blog, and my blog is culixpipian.com. And the reason why I picked Culix pipian is because Culix pipian is the mosquito that they told us carried West Nile virus. And so
Can you spell that so people can find your blog, Tiffany? Because we only have a couple of minutes left.
Minutes. I wish we had hours, because I
know, but we're gonna keep talking about this, because every time I'm learning about something new and significant, and I want to ask you. I want you to spell that, and then I also want you to answer if you see any relationship between what you saw at these dairy farms and tie in irrigation and then lettuce that has E. coli on it. Do you see a relationship?
Okay. I can answer that. I can answer that 100% because that's what I did. But okay, first of all, I need to clarify. 2 episodes ago, I was giving the name of a website that you can go to find out government employees' wages, and that is Transparent California. And I think I said something like Transparent America. So I wanted to correct that. It's
okay, Transparent California. Okay, that's good to know.
But my website is CUL as in Laura, EXPIPIEN.com, Culix pipian, which is a northern house mosquito. That's so, and that's the dairy mosquito. That's a mosquito that you would find.
So do you see a link between what you see at the farms and how we end up with E. coli on our lettuce?
Well, I can tell you that you see a lot of, I don't know what to say. I don't know if illegal immigrants are the proper terminology, or you see lower waged people working on the farms and they don't always have bathrooms.
So that's adding to it even more, and we have compostable toilets, so that shouldn't even be a problem.
But like when I worked out on the islands, I would see the employees out there, and they wouldn't have, they didn't have coverage, places to take breaks, not, bathrooms, and plus, and if they lived on site, they don't always, they just drain their sewage from the place that they're staying right there onto the property.
Okay, well, we got sewage coming from everywhere. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Tiffany, so much. And please go to BlueMonarchProject.com. Check out Tiffany's blog page and SmartHealthTalk.com. And, of course, you can find our podcasts on iHeartRadio. Thanks so much for tuning in to Smart Health Talk. We'll be back again. And thank you, Tiffany Anderson, for all your great information. And please join